The alarm system chirped 3 times before Rilna realized what it meant. Her feathers ruffled involuntarily as she checked the sensor display again, hoping she had misread it. She had not. 4 ships were closing in on their position, and their transponder codes marked them as unregistered vessels. In the trade lanes, unregistered meant only one thing: pirates. Tobin looked up from his navigation console, his large amber eyes meeting hers. He did not need to speak. They both knew the peaceful venture had no weapons beyond a single mining laser meant for clearing debris. The ship was designed for cargo transport, not combat. Their people, the Valorians, had not fought a war in over 300 years. Violence was something other species engaged in, something their diplomats smoothed over with trade agreements and cultural exchanges. "Send the distress call," Rilna said, keeping her voice steady for the sake of her crew. "Use the planetary emergency frequency. They should respond within 3 standard days." 3 days? Essa's voice cracked from the engineering station. The young Valorian had only been with them for 6 cycles. This was supposed to be a simple supply run to the outer colonies. Medical equipment, food synthesizers, educational materials. Nothing valuable enough to attract raiders. Apparently, the raiders disagreed. "Broadcast on all standard channels," Rilna added. "Maybe a patrol ship will hear us." Tobin's talons clicked rapidly across his console. Message sent. "The Planetary Consortium confirms receipt. They are dispatching assistance, but..." He trailed off, looking at the sensor data again. "The unregistered ships will reach us in approximately 6 hours." Rilna felt her secondary eyelids flutter closed for a moment. She had known the answer before asking. The Planari were their closest allies, reliable trade partners who had worked with the Valorians for generations. But they were 3 days away. The raiders would have stripped their cargo and disappeared long before help arrived. "Should we run?" Essa asked. "Our engines cannot outpace theirs," Tobin said quietly. "They have military-grade propulsion systems." Rilna made her decision. It was the only decision her culture and training allowed. "We follow Protocol 7. Non-resistance. We cooperate fully, hand over the cargo, and pray to the ancestors they leave us alive." She touched the communication panel. "All crew, this is your captain. We have uninvited guests approaching. Secure all stations and prepare for boarding. Do not resist. Do not fight. Our lives are worth more than cargo." The acknowledgements came back one by one from the 12 crew members scattered throughout the ship. Some voices shook. Others remained calm. All of them understood what was happening. In the civilized parts of the galaxy, violence was rare. Most species had evolved past such primitive behaviors, or had been guided away from them by older, wiser cultures. Disputes were settled through arbitration, resources shared according to need and capability, wars fought only in historical simulations. The Valorians had built their entire society on cooperation and mutual benefit. But out here, in the gaps between the major trade routes, civilization's reach weakened. There were always those who chose to take rather than trade. The galaxy's peacekeepers did their best, but space was vast and their numbers limited. Rilna watched the sensor display as the 4 ships drew closer. They were moving in a standard raider pattern, boxing in their prey, cutting off escape routes that did not exist anyway. Professional, experienced. That might be good or bad. Professionals knew that dead merchants could not be robbed again. But professionals also knew exactly how to hurt someone without killing them, how to extract value from fear. "Incoming transmission," Tobin said. Rilna nodded, and the view screen flickered to life. The face that appeared was unfamiliar, covered partially by a breathing mask, but the species was recognizable. Kral, a warrior culture that had never quite adapted to the peaceful galaxy around them. Most Kral served as security forces or military contractors. Some found other outlets for their aggressive tendencies. "Valorian vessel. Cut your engines and prepare to be boarded," the Kral said. His voice carried the flat tone of someone who had said these words many times before. "Surrender your cargo and we will not harm your crew. Resist and you will be spaced." "We understand," Rilna replied, keeping her voice neutral. "We are powering down engines now. Please, we carry medical supplies for the colonies." "People will die without them," the Kral laughed. "People die every day, little bird. Not my concern." The transmission cut off. Rilna gave the order to shut down the engines. The gentle hum that had been the constant companion of every journey faded to silence. Without thrust, they drifted in the black, waiting. Essa was crying quietly at her station. Tobin sat perfectly still, as he always did when stressed. Rilna wanted to comfort them, to promise everything would be fine. But she had been taught never to lie to her crew. Instead, she pulled up the emergency protocols on her personal display and began reviewing the sections on hostage situations and pirate encounters. The recommendations were simple: comply, do not provoke. Remember that material goods could be replaced but lives could not. Wait for rescue. She did not bother reading the section on armed resistance. Her people had no weapons, no training, no cultural knowledge of how to fight. They were merchants and engineers and teachers, not soldiers. Through the viewport, she could see one of the raider ships closing in, its docking clamps extending like predatory talons. Somewhere in the distance, traveling faster than light, her distress call was spreading outward into the void. By the time anyone received it and responded, this would all be over. Rilna touched a prayer charm hanging from her console and whispered an old Valorian blessing. Then she straightened her feathers, lifted her head high, and prepared to face whatever came next with as much dignity as her people had maintained for countless generations. She did not know that her distress call had already been heard. She did not know that an answer was coming from a direction she had never expected. She did not know that the Deathworlders were only 4 hours away. Nora had her head buried inside an access panel when the alert sounded. She swore loudly, yanked her hand back before the automatic safety clamps could engage, and wiped grease across her forehead without thinking about it. The engine room of the Iron Betty was not designed for comfort. It was designed to keep working even when everything else went wrong, which meant tight spaces, redundant systems, and enough backup generators to power a small station. "Ravi, please tell me that is not another coolant leak," she called into her headset. "Negative," came the reply. "We have picked up a distress signal. Valorian merchant vessel under attack by raiders." Nora pulled herself out of the panel and grabbed a rag. "Where are the nearest patrols?" "Checking now." A pause. "Plenary Consortium forces are 3 days out. We are 4 hours away." She climbed the ladder to the upper engineering deck and made her way forward. The Iron Betty had been a military transport before being decommissioned and sold for scrap. Ravi had bought it for almost nothing, and together they had spent 2 years turning it into a capable cargo hauler. Most of the weapon systems were gone, stripped out to make room for containers, but they had kept a few surprises. Just in case, you never knew what you might run into in deep space. The bridge was small and efficient. Ravi sat in the command chair, his dark eyes fixed on the display showing the distress signal's origin point. Dmitri occupied the weapons station, though officially they did not have weapons. Lily was reviewing medical supplies, her kit already open on the console beside her. "They did not send this to us," Dmitri observed, his accent thickening slightly. "Signal is on Valorian plenary frequencies." "Broadcast leaked onto the emergency bands," Ravi said. "We heard it." "That makes it our business, does it?" Nora asked, though she already knew the answer. She had served with Ravi in the military. She knew how he thought. Ravi pulled up the tactical display. 4 raider vessels, smaller and faster than the Iron Betty, surrounding a single merchant ship. The merchant vessel's engines were already offline. Boarding would begin soon, if it had not already started. "We are not supposed to interfere with local security matters," Dmitri said. It was not an argument, just a statement of fact. The galactic community had made it very clear when humanity joined that they should stick to their own affairs. Humans had a reputation, not a good one. "Those rules are for governments, not private citizens," Ravi replied. "We are a civilian cargo vessel that happens to be in the area. If we choose to respond to a distress call, that is our right." Lily looked up from her medical kit. "They will be terrified of us." "More terrified than they are of the pirates?" Nora asked. That hung in the air for a moment. Everyone knew the answer. Humans had been part of the galactic community for only 20 years. 20 years since the survey ship had stumbled onto Earth and been shocked to find an intelligent species thriving on a Class 12 death world. Most civilized species came from gentle planets with stable climates, limited predators, and evolutionary paths that favored cooperation over competition. Earth was not gentle. Earth had ice ages and supervolcanoes and asteroid impacts that wiped out entire ecosystems. It had predators that hunted in packs and parasites that hijacked neural systems and diseases that could wipe out continents. Humanity had clawed its way to the top of the food chain through sheer stubborn refusal to die, and that history showed in everything they did. They built ships with triple redundant life support because they expected disasters. They trained medics for combat because they expected casualties. They studied warfare even in peacetime because they expected conflict. To most of the galaxy, humans were paranoid, aggressive, and dangerously unpredictable. But they also answered distress calls. Set an intercept course, Ravi ordered. Maximum burn. I want to be there in 3.5 hours. Nora felt the deck vibrate as the engines spooled up beyond their recommended operational parameters. She would need to watch the coolant systems carefully, but the Iron Betty could handle it. They had built her to handle worse. What is the plan? Dmitri asked, already running calculations on his console. We ask nicely for them to leave, Ravi said. If they refuse, we make them leave. With what weapons? We have a mining laser and some cargo clamps. Ravi smiled. We have a weapons officer with excellent aim and a ship that can take a beating. Sometimes that is enough. Dmitri pulled up the raider ship specifications. Kral design. Light armor, heavy weapons. Fast but fragile. Good. That means they will run if things go badly for them. Or they will threaten to kill the hostages. Then we convince them that is a bad idea. Nora leaned against the bulkhead and watched the display. The numbers were not great. 4 against 1, and they were not even a proper warship anymore. But the Iron Betty had armor plating designed to withstand micrometeorite impacts at relativistic speeds. Her engines could push far beyond safe limits because they had been built for military emergency maneuvers, and her crew had trained for situations exactly like this. Humans did not start fights, but they were very, very good at finishing them. I will prep the airlock for possible boarding action, Lily said, gathering her medical kit. If we take damage, I want to be ready. I will reroute power from non-essential systems, Nora added. We can boost shields by another 15% if we shut down the galley and most of the cargo bay lighting. Do it, Ravi confirmed. The hours passed in tense preparation. Dmitri ran simulation after simulation, calculating firing angles and optimal approach vectors. Nora coaxed more power from the engines than the manufacturer had ever intended. Lily set up a triage station just off the main corridor, preparing for injuries that might never come. Ravi sat in his chair and watched the distance decrease, kilometer by kilometer. When they were 30 minutes out, he opened a secure channel to the rest of the crew. There were only 8 of them total on the Iron Betty. Small for a ship this size, but humans preferred tight crews where everyone knew everyone else. Pack instinct, the xenopsychologists called it. Humans bonded with their groups and defended them fiercely. This is the captain, Ravi said. In 28 minutes, we will be engaging hostile forces to protect a civilian vessel. I will not order anyone into danger. If you want to stay out of this, now is the time to say so. The responses came back immediately, all of them variations of the same theme. No one was backing down. Grant, the head of their tiny security team, added, About time we saw some action. I was getting bored hauling fertilizer. Ravi closed the channel and looked at his crew on the bridge. Dmitri was completely focused on his targeting systems. Nora had her hands flying across the engineering controls, adjusting, optimizing, preparing. Lily was strapping herself into an acceleration seat, her medical training overriding any fear she might feel. They were ready. The Iron Betty dropped out of faster-than-light travel 4 million kilometers from the distress signal. Close enough to arrive quickly, far enough to assess the situation. Ravi's display immediately updated with current tactical data. The Valorian ship was dead in space, engines cold. 2 of the raider vessels were clamped to its hull. The other 2 circled in a patrol pattern. They have already boarded, Dmitri reported. Then we are right on time, Ravi said. He opened a wideband transmission. Attention raider vessels. This is the cargo ship Iron Betty. Release the merchant vessel immediately and withdraw. You have 1 chance to comply. For a long moment, there was only silence. Then the raiders' response came and Ravi smiled. This was going to be interesting. Garth had raided over 40 ships in his career, and he knew the pattern well. Merchant crews always surrendered. They handed over their cargo, maybe pleaded for specific items to be left behind, and then watched helplessly as his team stripped everything valuable. Clean, efficient, profitable. The Kral Syndicate had perfected the process over decades, so when his sensor operator reported an approaching vessel, Garth was not worried. Probably another trader unfortunate enough to stumble into the area. His ships could handle 2 prizes as easily as 1. Then his operator looked up, mandibles clicking nervously. "Commander, the ship is hailing us." "Ignore it." "Sir?" The transponder identifies it as human. Garth felt his spine ridges stiffen involuntarily. Human. He checked the sensor data himself, hoping for an error. The ship's profile confirmed it. Human design, human engine signature, human everything. Deathworlders, what are humans doing out here? He muttered. The communication came through on an open channel. The voice was calm, almost casual, speaking in perfect galactic common. "Attention, raider vessels. This is the cargo ship Iron Betty. Release the merchant vessel immediately and withdraw. You have one chance to comply." Garth activated his own transmission, keeping his voice hard. "Human ship, this is none of your concern. We have claimed salvage rights to this vessel. Leave now or be destroyed." There was a pause. Then the human spoke again, and this time there was something sharp in his tone. "That is a civilian vessel broadcasting a distress signal. You have no salvage rights. You have 10 seconds to release that ship and withdraw. After that, we stop asking," Garth laughed. It was one ship. One cargo hauler against his 4 raiders. Humans might be tough, but they were not invincible. You are outnumbered 4-1. I suggest you reconsider your position. 8 seconds. We have Valorian hostages aboard their ship. If you fire on us, they die. 5 seconds. Garth slammed his fist on the console. These Deathworlders were insane. Everyone knew humans did not think properly. They made irrational decisions based on emotions instead of logic. They formed attachments to complete strangers. They took risks that no sensible species would consider. "Fire a warning shot across their bow," Garth ordered. "Show them we are serious." His gunner complied. A particle beam lanced out, passing within 100 meters of the human ship. The human ship did not even slow down. It accelerated directly toward them. "Time is up," the human said, and his ship opened fire. The first shot hit Garth's forward shields, and they buckled immediately. Alarms screamed across the bridge. His gunner was already returning fire, joined by the 2 patrol ships, but the human vessel kept coming. It took hits that should have crippled it, should have breached its hull, and just kept coming. "What is their armor made of?" his tactical officer shouted. Garth did not answer because he was watching in horror as the human ship's next shot punched through his weapons array with surgical precision. Not a lucky hit, deliberate targeting. One moment he had offensive capabilities, the next he had a hole where his primary cannon used to be. "All ships concentrate fire," he ordered. The 3 active raiders poured energy into the human vessel. Its shields collapsed, but its armor held. Garth had seen military cruisers with weaker defensive plating. This was supposed to be a cargo ship, a civilian transport. What kind of species armored their trade vessels like warships? Deathworlders, that was who. The human ship rolled, angling its more damaged sections away from incoming fire, and launched another volley. This time it targeted the patrol ships. Both took direct hits to their engine sections. Not destroyed, disabled. The humans were shooting to cripple, not kill. Why would raiders deserve that mercy? "Our port shield generator is failing," his engineer reported. "Hull breaches on decks 4 and 6. The boarding team is trapped on the Valorian ship." Garth made a decision. Pride was not worth dying for. "Signal our ships to withdraw. Tell the boarding team to get back to their transport and disengage, but the cargo, now." The transmission went out. Garth watched as his 2 patrol ships broke off, limping away on emergency thrusters. The ship attached to the Valorian vessel detached with frantic haste. Only Garth's command ship remained, and only because he needed to cover the other's escape. The human ship was still coming. It was bleeding atmosphere from a dozen small breaches. Its shields were completely down, and it had scorch marks across half its hull. But it was still coming. Garth fired his remaining weapons. The human ship absorbed the hits and returned fire. This time the shot took out his main engines. His ship went dead in space, drifting on momentum alone. The human voice came back over the communication channel. "This is your only warning. Next time we will not be so gentle. Run." Gentle? Garth looked at his crippled ship, at the casualties being reported from the damaged sections, at the complete and total defeat he had just experienced. This was gentle? His remaining engines sputtered to life under emergency power. He used them to push away from the combat zone as fast as his damaged systems would allow. The patrol ships were already disappearing into the black. The boarding ship was racing to catch up. Behind them, the human vessel positioned itself between the Valorian merchant and any pursuit. "Standing guard," protecting prey that was not even their own species. Garth had fought many battles. He had raided countless ships. He had faced security forces and corporate defense fleets. But he had never seen anything like this. One ship against 4, taking incredible damage, and winning through sheer refusal to back down. This was why the galaxy feared Deathworlders. Aboard the Iron Betty, Dimitri let out a long breath and set his weapons to stand by. They are running. All 4 vessels are withdrawing. Ravi nodded, assessing the damage reports flowing across his display. Nora, how bad is it? We have lost shield generators 2 and 5. Hull breaches on multiple decks, but the emergency bulkheads are holding. One of the cargo bays is venting atmosphere, but it was empty anyway. Engines are at 70% efficiency. She paused. We can still fly and we can still fight if we need to. Casualties? 3 injuries from the impacts. Nothing serious. Lily is handling it. Ravi allowed himself a small smile. They had gambled that the raiders would break before the Iron Betty did. And they had been right. Humans might not have the most advanced technology, but they built things to last. Built them to survive. Built them like their lives depended on it, because on Earth they always had. Open a channel to the Valorian ship, he ordered. The view screen flickered, and a Valorian appeared. She was small, covered in soft feathers with large eyes that looked almost comically oversized in her delicate face. She was shaking. This is Captain Ravi of the Iron Betty, he said, keeping his voice as gentle as he could manage. The raiders have withdrawn. You are safe now. Do you require assistance? The Valorian stared at him. Her beak opened and closed twice before sound came out. You are human. Yes. You answered our distress call. Yes. But we did not send it to you. Ravi shrugged. Someone needed help. We were close enough to provide it. That is all that matters. The Valorian continued to stare. Behind her, other crew members were visible, all watching with expressions that Ravi had seen. Before, fear, awe, confusion, the usual reaction when other species encountered humans doing human things. I am Captain Rilna, the Valorian finally managed. Thank you. We did not expect what? For anyone to come. And certainly not humans, Ravi finished for her. I understand. We have a reputation. You destroyed 4 raider ships. We disabled them. They will be able to limp to a repair station. Rilna's feathers ruffled in what might have been confusion. You let them go? They left. We had no reason to pursue. This seemed to confuse her even more. Ravi had seen this before too. Other species expected humans to be violent and savage, and they were surprised when humans showed restraint. They did not understand that humans knew exactly how much force was necessary, and rarely used more than that, unless you threatened someone they cared about. Then all restraint vanished. Your ship is damaged, Rilna observed. We have been through worse. Where were you headed? The colony at Sanctuary. 2 days' travel. We will escort you. Make sure you arrive safely. You would do that? Ravi smiled. You are welcome to refuse, but yes, we would do that. Rilna looked at something off-screen, probably consulting with her crew, then turned back. We would be grateful for your protection, Captain Ravi. Then let us get moving. The sooner we leave this area, the better. The transmission ended. Ravi leaned back in his chair and assessed the situation. The Iron Betty had taken damage, but nothing critical. The Valorians were safe. The raiders had fled. All in all, a successful intervention. Grant's voice came over the internal communication. Captain, do you need security teams to board the Valorian ship? Check for stragglers. Good idea. Take 2 people and keep it friendly. They are already scared enough. Understood. Nora appeared in the bridge doorway, wiping grease from her hands again. I need 6 hours to patch the worst of the damage. You have 2 days. Make the ship presentable by then, she grinned. I will make it beautiful. Dimitri was already calculating the course to Sanctuary, factoring in the slower pace needed to match the Valorian ship. Lily came up from medical, reporting that all injuries were minor and everyone would be fine. Ravi looked at the view screen showing the Valorian vessel hanging in space nearby. Small, delicate, built for peace in a galaxy that was not always peaceful. His crew had done good work today. They had saved lives. That was what mattered. The rest was just details. Essa pressed herself against the corridor wall as the human security team came through the airlock. She had never seen a Deathworlder in person before. Images on screens were one thing, but standing 3 meters away from actual humans was completely different. They were so big. Grant led the team, moving with a casual confidence that made S's feathers stand on end. Every predator instinct in her evolutionary history screamed warnings. These beings came from a world where everything wanted to kill you. They had evolved to fight and survive and hunt. Their eyes faced forward for tracking prey. Their hands could form fists for striking. Their teeth, though they tried to hide them, were clearly designed to tear meat, and they had just destroyed 4 raider ships to save her people. "Is everyone all right here?" Grant asked, his voice surprisingly gentle. He kept his hands visible and moved slowly, like he was approaching a frightened animal. He probably was, Essa realized. Rilna stepped forward, her plumage fluffed in a display of courage she clearly did not feel. "We are unharmed. The raiders had only just begun boarding when you arrived." "Good. We are going to do a quick sweep to make sure no one stayed behind. Standard security protocol. Is that acceptable?" "Yes, of course." "Thank you." Grant nodded to his team and they spread out through the ship, checking rooms with practiced efficiency. Essa watched them work and noticed something odd. They cleared each space thoroughly but touched nothing. They made no demands, took no liberties, showed no signs of conquest despite having every advantage. One of the humans, a woman with short dark hair, found a raider hiding in a storage compartment. The Kral tried to fight, lunging with a blade, but the human simply stepped aside, trapped his arm, and had him on the floor in restraints before Essa could even process what had happened. "You could have killed him," Essa whispered. Not meaning to speak aloud, the woman looked over, breathing barely elevated despite having just subdued an armed attacker. "Why would I do that? He is no threat now." "Because he tried to stab you," Essa thought but did not say. "Because you could. Because you are stronger and faster, and clearly trained for violence in ways my people stopped understanding centuries ago." Instead, she just nodded and watched as they hauled the raider to the airlock, handed him off to another human team that had come from the Iron Betty, and returned to their search. When they finished, Grant reported to Rilna, "Ship is secure. We found one hostile now in custody. Your vessel took no structural damage during the raid. You are clear to continue your journey whenever you are ready." "Thank you," Rilna said. "Will you be traveling with us?" "Captain Ravi offered to escort you to Sanctuary. We will stay close until you are safely home." Something in Rilna's posture relaxed slightly. "That is very kind." Grant smiled and Essa saw him deliberately keep his lips closed to hide his teeth. He knew they were frightened. He was trying to appear less threatening. The thought made her feel both grateful and slightly ashamed. After the security team left, Essa found herself in the engineering section with Nora, who had come over to help assess the Peaceful Ventures systems for any damage. The human engineer moved through the Valorian ship with open curiosity, occasionally asking questions about their technology. "Your power distribution is elegant," Nora said, examining a control panel. "Very efficient. Minimal redundancy, though." "Redundancy?" Essa asked. "Backup systems. What happens if your primary generator fails?" "We have a secondary generator." "Just one?" "Well, yes. The probability of both failing simultaneously is extremely low." Nora made a humming sound that Essa could not quite interpret. "On the Iron Betty, we have 4 backup power systems. 5 if you count the emergency batteries." "5? But why?" "The statistical likelihood of needing more than 2 is minuscule. Statistics do not account for bad luck," Nora replied, "or hostile action, or equipment failure during a crisis when you need power the most." She tapped the panel thoughtfully. "On Earth, we learned to prepare for worst-case scenarios because worst-case scenarios happened regularly." Essa thought about that. Her training had taught her that proper maintenance and careful planning prevented disasters. You avoided problems through intelligence and preparation. The idea of simply accepting that disasters would occur and building accordingly was alien. "What was Earth like?" she asked, then immediately regretted the question. It seemed too personal, but Nora did not seem to mind. "Dangerous," she said simply. "Beautiful, but dangerous. We have storms that can destroy cities, earthquakes that reshape continents, predators that hunt in packs, diseases that can kill millions." She smiled slightly. "When you grow up on a world that is actively trying to kill you, you learn to build things tough. How did your species survive?" "We learned to work together. We built tools. We adapted to every environment on the planet, from frozen tundras to scorching deserts. And when nature tried to wipe us out, She shrugged. We refused to die. Stubborn, I guess. Stubborn seemed like an understatement. They worked in companionable silence for a while, Nora offering suggestions for minor improvements to the Valorian systems, Essa providing information about their standard configurations. It was surprisingly easy to talk to the human once you got past the initial fear. Later, Lily came aboard to check on the Valorian crew. Essa watched as the human medic moved from person to person, performing examinations with gentle efficiency. Tobin had twisted his ankle during the raider alarm, and Lily treated it with supplies from her kit. You carry medical equipment with you at all times? Essa asked. Lily looked up, surprised by the question. Of course. You never know when someone might get hurt. But you are on a ship. The medical bay has everything you need. What if I cannot get to the medical bay? What if there is a hull breach or a fire or the corridors are blocked? Lily patted her kit. This can keep someone alive until proper treatment is available. Another worst-case scenario, Essa thought. Humans seem to live their lives expecting disaster at any moment. Is that why your crew has combat medics? She asked. Because you expect to be injured during fights? Lily's expression grew serious. War is chaotic. People get hurt. If you wait until you are safe to treat injuries, a lot of people die who could have been saved. She finished wrapping Tobin's ankle. Keep weight off it for a day or two. You will be fine. Tobin chirped his gratitude and Lily moved on to check the others. That evening, Rilna invited the human captain to dinner. It was a formal gesture among Valorians, a way to show respect and gratitude. Ravi accepted and brought some of his crew with him. The meal was awkward. Valorians ate small portions of processed grains and vegetables, carefully prepared and presented. The humans ate with visible enthusiasm, consuming quantities that shocked their hosts. Grant told stories about Earth, carefully editing them to be less frightening, but even his sanitized versions made Essa shiver. Mountains that exploded with molten rock. Predators that could run faster than Valorian shuttles. Weather patterns that could freeze or boil you depending on the season. How do you live in such a place? Rilna asked. You adapt, Ravi said. Humans are excellent at adaptation. We can survive in almost any environment given time and resources. But at what cost? Your people must live in constant fear. Ravi considered this. Not fear, awareness. We know danger exists, so we prepare for it. We build strong homes. We create warning systems. We work together to overcome challenges. He smiled. And when the danger passes, we appreciate the good times even more. Essa thought about the humans she had met today. Grant, who moved like a predator but spoke with kindness. Nora, who saw disaster around every corner but still built things with optimism. Lily, who carried trauma supplies everywhere yet had the gentlest touch Essa had ever experienced. They were walking contradictions. Violent and peaceful, paranoid and trusting, terrifying and comforting. Why did you help us? Tobin asked suddenly. We are strangers. Our distress call was not even sent to you. The humans exchanged glances. Dmitri spoke up, his accent making the words sound almost formal. Someone needed help. We were able to provide it. This is not complicated, but you risked your lives. Your ship for people you do not know. Yes, why? Ravi leaned back in his chair. Because that is what you do. When you see someone in trouble, you help them. It does not matter if they are human or Valorian or any other species. It does not matter if they know your name or not. You help because it is the right thing to do. The simplicity of the answer stunned Essa. There was no hidden agenda, no expectation of reward, no complex political calculation. Just a straightforward moral principle applied without hesitation. These deathworlders, these creatures from a world of constant violence and danger, had risked themselves for strangers because it was the right thing to do. Rilna seemed to be struggling with the same realization. We have misjudged your people, she said quietly. Most species do, Ravi replied without bitterness. We understand. Our reputation is complicated. You saved our lives today. That is not complicated. No, Ravi agreed. No, that part is simple. After dinner, as the humans prepared to return to their ship, Essa worked up the courage to approach Nora. Can I ask you something? Of course. Your engineering methods, the redundancies and overbuilding and worst-case planning, could you teach me about them? Nora's face lit up with genuine delight. Absolutely. I have tons of technical manuals and design documents. Fair warning though, human engineering can seem excessive. After today, Essa said, excessive sounds like exactly what I want to learn. Nora laughed. And Essa found herself laughing too, the tension of the day finally breaking. Maybe these Deathworlders were not so frightening after all, or maybe they were. But they were frightening in a way that protected instead of threatened, like a guard dog, fierce and strong but loyal to those it chose to defend. As the humans departed and the peaceful venture resumed its journey with its unexpected escort, Essa looked out the viewport at the Iron Betty keeping pace nearby. The human ship bore scorch marks and battle damage from the fight it had endured to protect them. She decided that Deathworlders might be the best friends a species could have. Nora floated through the access corridor of the peaceful venture, following Essa to engineering. The young Valorian had asked for daily lessons in human design philosophy, and Nora was more than happy to oblige. Teaching was one of her favorite things, especially when the student showed genuine enthusiasm. So these are your coolant lines, Essa said, pointing to a neatly organized series of pipes running through the engine compartment. They regulate temperature for the main reactor. What happens if one ruptures? The automatic sealant system activates and patches the breach. And if the sealant system fails? Essa paused. The secondary sealant system activates. Good. And after that? After that? Essa's feathers ruffled in confusion. Why would both systems fail? Humor me. I suppose we would initiate emergency shutdown and repair the breach manually. Nora nodded. On a human ship, we would have the two sealant systems, plus manual shutoff valves every 10 meters, plus temperature sensors that would warn us before catastrophic failure, plus a completely separate backup coolant loop that runs through a different section of the ship. That seems like excessive preparation for an unlikely scenario. It does, Nora agreed, until the unlikely scenario happens. Then it seems like basic common sense. She pulled up a schematic on her datapad. Let me tell you about the time my coolant system failed during a combat operation. The story took 20 minutes and involved cascading failures, improvised repairs and solutions that made Essa's eyes go wide with horror. But the Iron Betty had survived. The crew had survived. Because they had built in enough redundancy that even when multiple systems failed simultaneously, they still had options. Earth made you paranoid, Essa observed. Earth made us realistic, Nora corrected gently. We learned that trusting a single system, no matter how reliable, was a good way to die. So we built backups, and backups for the backups. They spent hours going through systems, Nora explaining the human approach to engineering while Essa took meticulous notes. The Valorian was a quick learner, already seeing ways to apply human principles to her own work. Later that day, Rilna joined Ravi on the bridge of the Iron Betty. The human captain had invited her to discuss the remainder of the journey to Sanctuary, and she found herself curious about how humans ran their ships. The bridge was smaller than she expected, designed for efficiency rather than comfort. Every station was within easy reach of every other station. The view screen dominated one wall, showing both the Valorian ship and the space around them. You said you were military, Rilna ventured as they reviewed the navigation data. Former military, Ravi clarified. I served for 10 years, then retired to civilian life. Is that common among humans? Moving between military and civilian roles? Very common. Many of us serve when we are young, then use that training in other careers. Rilna tried to imagine that. The Valorians had security forces, but they were specialists who trained for that role their entire lives. The idea of everyone having combat training, then going off to become merchants or engineers or teachers seemed bizarre. What did you do in the military? I commanded a patrol ship. We protected trade routes and responded to emergencies. Like this one, exactly like this one. Ravi smiled slightly. Old habits. Do all human ships carry weapons? Most carry some defensive capability. Space is dangerous. Pirates, debris, the occasional territorial dispute. We like to be prepared. That word again. Prepared. Humans seem to organize their entire civilization around being prepared for disasters. Can I ask you something personal? Rilna said. Of course. When you decided to help us, did you consider the risk to your own crew? Ravi was quiet for a moment. I did. Every captain considers risk. But I also considered what would happen if we did not help. You would have been robbed, possibly killed, and we would have flown away knowing we could have prevented it. He shook his head. That is not acceptable. My crew agreed. You consulted them? I always consult them on decisions that might put them in danger. They have the right to know what they are getting into. And they all chose to fight. They all chose to help, Ravi corrected. The fighting was just a means to that end. Rilna thought about her own crew. She had ordered them to surrender because fighting was unthinkable. Not because they were cowards, but because violence was simply not part of their cultural framework. They had evolved past it, left it behind as a relic of primitive times. But watching the humans, she wondered if maybe they had not evolved past violence so much as learned to channel it. Humans fought, yes, but they fought to protect. They prepared for war but hoped for peace. They carried weapons but showed mercy. It was a balance her people had never needed to strike. Over dinner that evening, the crews of both ships gathered in the Peaceful Ventures common area. It had become a tradition over the past 2 days. The humans would bring food from their ship. The Valorians would prepare their own meals, and they would eat together while sharing stories. Tobin asked about Earth's weather, and Dmitri described winter storms with winds strong enough to knock over buildings. Essa asked about predators, and Grant told carefully edited stories about animals that could kill humans with a single bite. But we killed them first, Grant added with a grin. Humans are apex predators on Earth. Nothing hunts us anymore. Anymore? Rilna asked. Well, things used to hunt us, back when we were smaller and weaker. But we got smarter. We developed tools and tactics. Eventually, we became the hunters instead of the prey. That must have taken thousands of years. Millions, actually. Evolution is slow. Lily joined the conversation, talking about diseases. Earth has thousands of pathogens that can harm humans. Viruses, bacteria, parasites. Our immune systems are incredibly robust just from surviving childhood. How many diseases do you encounter regularly? Essa asked. Most humans will experience dozens of different illnesses over their lifetime. Colds, infections, various viral outbreaks. We have developed medicine to treat most of them, but new ones appear regularly. The Valorians were horrified. Their own world had minimal pathogens. Their immune systems correspondingly weak. A disease that would barely slow a human could kill a Valorian. Is that why you sterilize everything? Tobin asked, gesturing to how the humans carefully cleaned their eating utensils. Partly, Lily said. We carry bacteria that are harmless to us but might be dangerous to other species. Standard quarantine protocols when interacting with aliens. Even their kindness came from a place of potential danger, Rilna realized. They protected others from themselves. Grant pulled out a small device and showed images of Earth, mountains that touched the clouds, oceans that stretched beyond the horizon, forests so dense that sunlight barely reached the ground, cities filled with billions of humans living in structures that reached toward the sky. It looks beautiful, Essa said softly. It is, Grant replied. Dangerous but beautiful. You learn to appreciate both aspects. Would we be safe there? Rilna asked. With proper precautions, absolutely. We have environmental suits that protect against the gravity and atmosphere. Controlled environments where you could stay comfortable. Many aliens visit Earth every year, but you could not visit our world without similar precautions. Grant nodded. The low gravity would feel strange. We would be stronger and faster than normal, which could be dangerous for you. We would need to be very careful. Another contradiction. Their strength was both protection and threat. Nora brought out human coffee, warning everyone that it was mildly toxic to most species, but offering to share anyway. Rilna tried a tiny sip and immediately regretted it. The bitterness was intense, the stimulant effects making her heart race. How do you drink this? She gasped. Acquired taste, Nora said cheerfully. Some humans add sugar or cream to make it more palatable. Why drink something you have to modify to tolerate? Because we like the challenge, I guess. Also, the caffeine helps us stay awake. Rilna watched the humans pass around their toxic beverage, consuming it with every appearance of enjoyment. Even their recreation involved consuming poisons. These deathworlders were insane. Later, as the gathering wound down, Rilna found herself standing with Ravi near the viewport, watching the stars drift past. Your people perplex me, she admitted. You are violent and gentle, paranoid and trusting. You prepare for the worst while hoping for the best. We contain multitudes, Ravi said with a smile. Humans are contradictory by nature. We fight wars but dream of peace. We fear death but take incredible risks. We are suspicious of strangers but form deep bonds with them. How do you reconcile those contradictions? We do not. We embrace them. Being human means holding opposing ideas in your head simultaneously and somehow making both work. That sounds exhausting. It can be, but it also makes us adaptable. We can be whatever the situation requires. Warriors when threatened, healers when needed, builders when there is work to be done, explorers when there are mysteries to solve. Rilna looked at the damaged hull of the Iron Betty, still visible through the viewport, scorch marks from the battle, hastily patched breaches, signs of violence endured in defense of strangers. Why did you really help us? She asked. And please, no simple answers about it being the right thing to do. I want to understand. Ravi was quiet for a long time. On Earth we have a saying, no man is an island. It means we cannot exist alone. We need each other. And if we need each other, then we have a responsibility to each other. He turned to face her. When I heard your distress call, I heard people who needed help. In that moment, you became my responsibility, not because of laws or treaties or trade agreements, but because you were people in danger and I had the power to do something about it. Even though we are not human. Especially because you are not human. If we only helped our own species, we would be no better than the raiders who attacked you. You could have died. Yes, but we did not, and you are alive because we took that risk, he smiled. I think that is a fair trade. Rilna felt something shift in her understanding. These humans, these violent, paranoid, contradictory deathworlders, had a moral framework as rigid as any she had encountered. They just expressed it differently. They did not avoid violence. They controlled it. They did not ignore danger. They prepared for it. They did not love carelessly. They loved fiercely. Thank you, she said quietly. For everything. You are welcome. And Rilna, when you get home, tell your people what happened here. Tell them that humans answered a call not meant for them. Tell them that the Deathworlders came and they came as friends. I will, Rilna promised. She would tell them, and maybe, just maybe, her people would begin to understand what she was only now learning. The galaxy needed protectors, and humanity, for all their contradictions and dangers, seemed willing to take on that role. Not because they were ordered to, not because they expected reward, but because it was the right thing to do. And for humans, that was reason enough. Sanctuary grew larger in the viewport with each passing hour. The Valorian colony hung in orbit around a gentle planet, its biodomes glittering like jewels against the darkness. Rilna felt relief wash through her. After everything that had happened, seeing home felt like waking from a nightmare. Then the proximity alarms sounded. Tobin's feathers went rigid as he checked his sensors. 3 ships just dropped out of faster-than-light travel. Configuration matches Kral Raiders. Rilna felt ice spread through her chest. The same ones? Transponder codes confirm it. They followed us. On the view screen, the 3 Raider vessels moved into attack formation. They were different ships from before, larger and better armed. Reinforcements. The Raiders had called for backup and come looking for revenge. Ravi's voice came through the communication channel, calm despite the threat. We see them. Move your ship behind ours. We will handle this. There are 3 of them, Rilna said, hearing her voice shake. And more are coming. My sensors show 2 additional ships approaching from the outer system. 5 total, then. Understood. Captain Ravi, you cannot fight 5 warships. Even your ship has limits. We will not be fighting alone. There was something in his voice, a confidence that Rilna did not understand. Nora, activate the distress beacon. Human frequencies. On the peaceful venture, Essa pulled up the sensor data and gasped. The beacon is broadcasting on maximum power. What is he doing? Calling for help, Tobin said. But the nearest human settlement is weeks away. The lead raider ship hailed them. Garth appeared on screen, his face twisted with anger. Human vessel, you humiliated my crews and cost us valuable cargo. This cannot be forgiven. Surrender now and we will make your deaths quick. Ravi appeared on a split screen, his expression utterly calm. Negative. You have 2 options. Leave immediately or wait approximately 15 minutes and see what happens. 15 minutes? Are you expecting rescue? There is no one close enough to help you. Incorrect. I suggest you check your long-range sensors. Garth's expression shifted to confusion, then shock. Rilna switched to her own long-range sensors and felt her breath catch. 3 ships were approaching at combat speed. Human ships. They must have been in the area. probably on their own business, and they had heard the distress beacon. One was another cargo hauler similar to the Iron Betty. The other two were patrol ships, smaller but heavily armed. Impossible, Garth hissed. You could not have called them. They are too close. They would have needed to start moving hours ago. We activated our beacon the moment we detected you trailing us yesterday, Ravi said. Any human ship in range would have heard it and diverted to intercept. You should have run when you had the chance. The Krull fleet hesitated. 5 raiders against 4 human ships. The odds had shifted, but they still held numerical advantage. Then another ship appeared on sensors. And another. And another. By the ancestors, Tobin whispered. 8 human vessels now. 9, 10. They dropped out of faster-than-light travel in a steadily growing swarm, answering a distress call from a ship they did not know. Rushing to help complete strangers because that was what humans did. ESA was frantically identifying transponder codes. Cargo ships, passenger liners, a mining vessel, 2 more patrol boats. One of those is a frigate, an actual military frigate. The frigate was the size of 3 raider ships combined, bristling with weapons, its armor thick enough to shrug off anything short of capital ship weaponry. It positioned itself at the head of the growing human fleet and opened a channel. The woman who appeared on screen wore a formal uniform. This is Captain Wei of the Human Defense Force frigate Vigilant. All hostile vessels are ordered to power down weapons and prepare to be boarded for violations of galactic piracy statutes. Garth's fleet began backing away. The odds had gone from challenging to suicidal in less than 5 minutes. You cannot enforce galactic law, Garth protested. You are not peacekeepers. We can enforce protection of civilian vessels under attack, Wei replied. And we can hold you for the proper authorities. Your choice. Surrender or run. But if you run, we will pursue. The raider fleet scattered, 5 ships fleeing in different directions at maximum acceleration. Several human patrol ships broke formation to pursue, but Captain Wei called them back. Let them go. Our priority is protecting the civilian vessels. The human fleet formed a defensive perimeter around both the peaceful venture and the Iron Betty. Rilna counted 14 ships total, all different sizes and configurations, all bearing human design aesthetics. Some showed signs of damage from rushing to get here. At least 2 had clearly diverted from cargo runs, their holds still full of whatever they had been transporting. They had abandoned their routes, potentially lost money, definitely inconvenienced themselves and their clients. For strangers, Captain Wei hailed the Iron Betty. Captain Ravi, status report. We are operational. The Valorian vessel is undamaged. Thank you for responding so quickly. When we heard a human distress beacon this far out, we assumed the worst. Glad to see you handled things until we arrived. Wei glanced at something off-screen. We will escort both vessels to Sanctuary and file a report with the sector peacekeepers about the raider activity. Appreciated. The transmission shifted to include Rilna's ship. Wei nodded respectfully. Captain Rilna, my apologies that you were caught in the middle of this situation. We will ensure you reach your destination safely. Rilna struggled to find words. You came. All of you. For us. The beacon said people needed help. We came. Wei said it like it was the most obvious thing in the universe. The journey to Sanctuary took another 3 hours. The human fleet maintained formation the entire way. Professional and coordinated despite being made up of civilian vessels and military ships thrown together on short notice. They communicated in clipped, efficient bursts, updating positions and sharing sensor data with practiced ease. They do this regularly, ESA said, watching the fleet movements. This is not improvised. They train for this, Tobin nodded slowly. Every human ship is expected to respond to distress calls. It is part of their cultural programming. Help those in need, protect the weak, answer the call. Even at cost to themselves. Especially at cost to themselves. When Sanctuary's orbital station came into view, Administrator Pohl hailed them immediately. The elderly Valorian appeared on screen, his crest feathers raised in alarm. Captain Rilna, we received fragmentary reports of raiders and human ships and... He trailed off, seeing the fleet surrounding them. What happened? Rilna took a breath and explained. The initial raid, the human rescue, the journey together, the second attack and the fleet response. Pohl listened in silence, his expression shifting from concern to disbelief to something approaching awe. When she finished, he was quiet for a long moment. Bring them to the station. All of them. I want to thank these humans personally. The docking procedures took hours. Sanctuary Station was not designed to handle so many ships at once, but the humans waited patiently while spaces were cleared and assignments made. The civilian vessels docked first, followed by the patrol ships. The frigate remained in orbit, too large for the station's berths. Rilna met Administrator Pole at the main docking bay as Captain Ravi and his crew disembarked from the Iron Betty. The other human captains gathered nearby, a diverse collection of merchants, miners, and military personnel who had dropped everything to answer a distress call. Pole stepped forward, moving slowly due to his age but with unmistakable dignity. Captain Ravi, on behalf of the Valorian people, I thank you for protecting our ship and our crew. Your actions have saved lives and demonstrated a character that honors your species. Ravi accepted the thanks with a slight bow. We did what anyone should do in such circumstances. But not everyone would. You risked your ship and crew for strangers. This is not a small thing. It is everything, Ravi said quietly. Without people willing to help each other, civilization fails. We are all just trying to survive out here in the dark. The least we can do is look out for each other. Pole turned to address all the human captains. You came from across the sector when you heard the call for help. Many of you were not even close. Yet you diverted from your planned routes, abandoned your schedules, and rushed to protect ships you had never met. His voice grew thick with emotion. The Valorian people will not forget this. You came when we needed you. You fought to protect us. You asked nothing in return. Captain Wei stepped forward. Administrator, we do have one request. The room went silent. Here it was, Rilna thought. The price. There was always a price. Name it, Pole said. We request permission to establish a trade relationship with your people. Not out of obligation for today's events, but because we believe the Valorians and humans would benefit from working together. Wei smiled slightly. Also, our engineers are very curious about your ship designs. They are beautifully efficient. Pole blinked in surprise. That is your request? Trade and cultural exchange? Yes, is that acceptable? More than acceptable. Welcomed. Pole glanced at Rilna. Captain Rilna has spoken highly of your people. She suggests we were wrong to fear humans based solely on reputation. Many species fear us, Ravi acknowledged. We understand. We come from a harsh world and we do harsh things when necessary, but we also believe in protecting the innocent and standing against injustice. Those traits come from the same source. Your world made you strong, Rilna said, joining the conversation. But it also made you loyal and protective. You are dangerous to your enemies and devoted to your friends. I think, she paused, choosing her words carefully. I think the galaxy needs both aspects of your nature. Grant grinned. We are pretty good at being scary when the situation calls for it. And gentle when it calls for that, Lily added. And persistent when everything is falling apart, Nora said. And loyal to those we care about, Dmitri finished. Pole studied the assembled humans. You truly came just because you heard someone needed help. Yes, they replied in unison. The administrator shook his head in wonder. Then the Deathworlders are not what we feared. They are exactly what we need. The gathering moved to a formal reception hall. The Valorian colony provided food and drink while speeches were made and official agreements signed. Rilna watched humans and Valorians mingling, cautiously at first, then with growing comfort. Essa was in an animated discussion with 3 human engineers about redundant safety systems. Tobin was comparing navigation techniques with a cargo captain. Even the patrol ship crews were sharing tactical information with Valorian security forces. 6 months ago, the Valorians had classified humans as a species to avoid, dangerous deathworlders from a planet that should not support intelligent life. Now they were signing trade agreements and cultural exchange programs. Rilna updated her official report on humanity, the one that would be distributed through Valorian space and shared with their allies. She deleted the old warning and replaced it with new information. Humans, she wrote, are reliable allies who will answer distress calls regardless of origin. They value life and will risk themselves to protect others. Their combat capabilities are formidable, but they exercise restraint and show mercy when possible. Recommend immediate establishment of diplomatic and trade relationships. They came when we called for help. They fought to protect us. They asked only for friendship in return. She paused, then added one more line. We sent our call to friends, but the Deathworlders heard it and came instead. We did not know then that we were calling the fiercest friends we would ever have. Late that evening, Rilna found Ravi standing near a viewport, looking out at the human fleet still in orbit. The ships were preparing to depart, returning to their interrupted journeys, their crews satisfied that the crisis had passed. "You are leaving soon," she observed. "Tomorrow. We have cargo to deliver, and these other captains need to get back to their routes. But we will return. The trade agreements ensure that. And if we call for help again, then we will come again. As many times as needed." He turned to face her. "You are our friends now. Humans take that seriously. Even though we were strangers just days ago. Friendship has to start somewhere, usually with one person helping another. Everything else builds from there." Rilna thought about the human response. 14 ships abandoning their plans to rush to the aid of strangers, risking combat against superior numbers, asking nothing in return except the opportunity to trade and learn from each other. "Your people are strange," she said. "We get that a lot. But good strange. Protective strange. Loyal strange." Ravi smiled. "We like to think so." They stood in comfortable silence for a while, watching the stars and the ships and the station slowly rotating beneath them. "Captain Ravi," Rilna said eventually, "if humans ever need help, if you ever send a distress call, the Valorians will answer. We may not be warriors, we may not be able to fight like you can, but we will come. We will help in whatever way we can. That means more than you know. You taught us something important. That strength is not just about fighting. It is about choosing to protect others even when it costs you, about answering calls not meant for you because someone needs help." She met his eyes. "Thank you for that lesson." "You are welcome. And Rilna, you might be surprised what you are capable of when people you care about are threatened. Valorians are not warriors now, but that does not mean you could not be if you needed to be." The thought should have been disturbing. Instead, Rilna found it strangely comforting. The next morning, the human fleet departed in groups, each ship returning to its original heading. The Iron Betty was the last to leave. Essa had spent the entire night with Nora, downloading technical manuals and design specifications. Tobin had coordinate data for trade routes. The entire Valorian crew gathered at the viewport to watch their unlikely protectors depart. As the human ship accelerated away, Essa said quietly, "Do you think we will see them again?" "Yes," Rilna replied with absolute certainty. "Humans do not abandon their friends. They will come back." "Good," Tobin said. "I have become quite fond of those violent, paranoid, contradiction-filled deathworlders." Rilna laughed. "So have I." She returned to her quarters and filed her final report. The galaxy would learn what the Valorians had discovered. That humans were dangerous, yes, violent when necessary, products of a world that tried to kill them every day. But they were also loyal, protective, willing to risk everything for complete strangers because it was the right thing to do. The Deathworlders had come, and in coming, they had shown the galaxy what true friendship looked like. Rilna looked forward to learning more.